Yep, thank you. Thank you, Howie. That was so informative, and it really dovetails really exactly with what I'm going to talk about. So Lisa, I think you knew that going into this when you planned it so beautifully. So what you're going to hear about today, I'm going to launch right in because I have just a few things to talk about. First is the gut-brain connection. And I'm going to talk about the gut-brain connection and what that means for both inflammation and for overall immunity, which we just really had a beautiful introduction to. And it's funny, I don't know if you planned this either, but we started with the mouth. I'm going to work a little bit down from there into the gut. So it's all going to literally flow and follow. I'm going to talk about the gut microbiome. That's your body's internal rainforest, and I'll talk more about what that means. It's the internal world of bacteria. It controls everything from our digestion to our mood. I'll talk about a diet for a healthy gut and immune system. I'll look at some pictures and talk about some food and what you can do right now, including the food, so that you can really, well, I was going to say you can go home and put some of these things into practice, but I think everybody is home. So you can walk to your kitchen and put some of these things into practice. Okay, so the first thing here that I think is interesting to understand is this gut-brain connection, and that overall, what we're talking about here is something that really involves neurology, and that understanding is if you go to the neurologist, it's all about the brain, but it also involves immunology, pathology, which I think Howie also touched on, and endocrinology, which is the whole notion of our hormones and how this is all connected. So I'm sure everybody here has at some point or various points in their lives experienced the feeling of butterflies in their stomach, or been sick with grief or anxiety. This is your gut brain at work. And it is bi-directional. It goes from your brain to your gut, but it also goes from your gut to your brain. So what actually is that mechanism that is sending the signal that allows your body to react that way? And the connector guy here is the vagus nerve, the thing that you see over here on the left of the screen. This is both the connector and the communicator of this two-way street, of this communication avenue, and it is really the longest of the 12 cranial nerves, the nerves that come out of your brain, and it actually goes from the brain stem right down into the abdomen. You may have seen pictures of this. It's like a little ball would be your head, with a little cord coming out and would go right down into your stomach. So the big news I find here is that the population of bacteria that resides and lives in our gut, the number, the ratio of what we call the good to the bad or the less good, the diversity and the quality affects the cells all along the vagus nerve. So they're not just in our gut, because remember the vagus nerve goes right up into my brain and how they function. So this is how the brain and gut really literally are connected and how they communicate with each other. I kind of like this drawing. It's a little crude, but it gives you that idea. Here's my brain, here's my gut. So two nervous systems. What really is the vagus nerve looking to connect? And there are actually two nervous systems. The central nervous system, which is the thing you're probably the most familiar with, that includes the brain and the spinal cord. And then something that we refer to as the gut brain, or the enteric nervous system. And this controls really so much of our biology. It includes our hormones, our muscles, and our immune system. It controls like 80 to 90% of the production of serotonin, which you probably know is the feel-good hormone. And so they call the enteric nervous system the second nervous system and the second brain, and I think actually maybe it's the first brain, I don't know. So these two nervous systems actually formed also, it says right on here, they formed at the same time in the developing fetus, which means, I don't know, by nature, they're kind of equal. They're not really two separate with one being better than the other. I kind of think that the one that's in our gut is the more intuitive, sort of the truth, if you will. Down in the lower right-hand corner, this introduces the concept, whereas Howie did introduce it, picks up on that about inflammation and what are called free radicals. So when we experience any kind of stress, and it's important to understand that our brains have this limbic system, which is our ancient brain. It's millions of years old. And it can't differentiate between when I'm being chased by a bear, a lion, or a tiger, and when I've had a fight with my spouse or had a run-in with my boss at work. It's all the same to my body. It's not that sophisticated that it knows which is which. So because of the gut-brain connection, whether it's physical or mental stress, it will all be perceived in the same way. And what will happen is the body launches this inflammatory response. Howie talked about cytokines or cytokines, I don't know which it is, and sends the system into really a high alert situation. So it can be stress from food or toxins, and those will push the body to have this kind of hyperimmune response. Not so much of a low level response, it's more of an acute response. Inflammation over time leads to the formation of free radicals. That's when a little piece of the cell breaks off and kind of goes rogue in your system and probably does some things that we don't want it to do, including causing the brain to go into a kind of rusty situation. So it kind of is literally less pliable and doesn't function as well. Okay. Here's one of my favorites. So I'm going to refer a lot of times within the course of the next few slides to the gut wall. So I know you all know what a wall is, but I really need us to kind of, in a metaphorical way, be able to refer to a wall versus a picket fence, right? So this represents the one on the left, one that's not so healthy. I'll talk about that a little bit more. And the one on the right is the one that is the more highly functioning, healthy part of our immune system or our gut wall. So this is the border between the outside world, the outside of what's around you, and the inside world. And this is our most intimate relationship that we share with things from the outside world when we take something from the outside and we stick it inside our body from the mouth, okay? So the border between the inside and the outside of you is protecting your organs, your tissues, your cells, including your cells and including your brain. And you don't want anything leaking through it because that can compromise everything that's on the other side of that. Other side of the wall, if you will, to look at the wall now, is the immune system. So you have, this is the gut, here's the food coming down, you have the wall, and immediately on the other side of the wall, you have the immune system. So if you don't have a wall and you have a picket fence and something slides through, well, guess what's right on the other side is the immune system that's now ready to sound the alert to the rest of the body as if something toxic is on its way in there that it wants to fight. Okay, so a healthy gut equals a healthy immune system. And you know, Howie, we could even say that the gut starts up in the mouth because it does. It starts here and it goes all the way through your system until it goes out the bottom, as we all know. So on the other side of the wall is the immune system ready to sound the alert. And between 70% and they say 80% of your immune system actually resides inside your microbiome. And I think it's helpful here to envision. Remember that biosphere project they did out in Arizona, like, I don't know, 20 years ago? And it's literally like a dome with people living inside it and all kinds of vegetation and life. So it is like this kind of dome or biome with all kinds of micro stuff growing inside there. Ideally, it will be a population of very healthy bacteria that are going to help to keep you healthy. In fact, we have more of these kind of bacteria in us than we do human cells. So a little bit more on that. Toxins, you see over here, first level of defense against toxins. Toxins can come from food. Again, we talked about those going down when you swallow them. Toxins in the environment or perceived or real stress, like I talked about with the bear versus the fight with the spouse. Same thing, all lead to gut inflammation because the body doesn't know the difference. A little bit more on how this happens, just to get a little bit deeper into, like, you know, some of the terminology and some of the functionality of what's happening with the gut wall. So the gut surface is a surface of epithelial tissue. This makes sense. It goes along with what Howie said. It starts in the mouth. So the epithelial tissue in our body is in our mouth, it's in our nose, it's in our eyes, and it's also throughout the entire intestinal wall. It absorbs nutrients that pass through it. So we're talking about a brick wall, but it's a little bit porous, enough so that the nutrients can get through. Secondly, it's a barrier to harmful pathogens and toxins, blocking them from getting through the wall. And then thirdly, the wall contains the microbes in the wall contain what are called immunoglobulins. Yes, I had to practice how to say that. Immunoglobulins, it has the word immune in it. These are chemical antibodies that actually bind to bacteria and any other kind of foreign particle that's coming down the tract, coming down the intestine. And it prevents them from attaching to the gut wall and then sneaking in behind the immune system and causing real issues. So they come from the immune system cells through the gut wall into the intestine so that these harmful bugs can then be excreted out of the body with your digestion. So basically, I called it a wall, but I just wanted to be clearer that there's things moving into the body from the wall that you want, nutrients. There's things moving from the other side of the wall these immunoglobulins from the immune system into the intestine to be able to have the bad guys not attached to the wall and then carry them out of the body the way they're supposed to be so they don't cause disease for you. Another thing I want to do tonight is I want to get a little bit more of a visceral feeling here and have you guys participate as much as possible, even though we're not together in person. So we're going to do this little finger exercise that I designed just today for you all. So we're going to take your two fingers, your index finger and your middle finger on both hands, and make a tic-tac-toe board or a cootie shot. I didn't think of that till just now. Okay, so it's a tic-tac-toe board, and what you want to do is open and close it. Open it and close it. So close it really tight and try to look through it. Good job, Madeline. I love the participation. She's the only one I can see. So you look through it, you see you can't look through it. I mean, I can sort of see a little something through it, but you know, for the most part, I can't see it. That's what you want. You want a tight junction of these epithelial cells that line the gut wall. Now open it a little bit. So when I open it a little bit, that's what happens. When I have a real tic-tac-toe board, I can see Madeline, I can see Lisa, I can see you all, even though I can't really. And things like sugar and gluten weaken the intestinal walls, allowing this now to become an open tic-tac-toe board or a picket fence. Those are things that break the nutrient. The body isn't able to sufficiently break down the nutrients and allows the wrong bacteria now to really get into our system, so we don't want that. The junctions determine our body's inflammation level. So depending upon how open those junctions are, how those epithelial cells talk to one another and talk through one another, that really determines our inflammation level and how equipped we are to deal with any kind of disease or bad situation that comes our way. So open junctions, increased inflammation, more susceptibility to disease. Closed up tight, our immune system is working well. Autoimmunes, when we have these open junctions, is when the body can start to theoretically attack itself. And we get autoimmunes, including celiac, allergies, HIV, IBD, diabetes, autism, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's, kind of like the whole soup to nuts deal on things that you don't want going on that are chronic, and some are potentially, really dangerous and certainly unpleasant for you and your loved ones. And here I'm just going to say a little bit about gluten, because I get often, as a health coach, I'm often asked the question by clients and people who are not clients, hey, if I'm not gluten sensitive or I'm not celiac, do I really have to worry about gluten? And the way first of all, the answer is yes. So let's just make that simple. And I'm getting a big nod from Madeline. I love the participation from just the few people I can see. So gluten, just so you know, is a sticky substance. And the way I thought about this earlier was like, okay, gluten is what is sticky enough to hold a piece of bread together. A piece of bread is made out of flour and maybe some grains, maybe if you're lucky. Why doesn't it all fall apart? Why does it hold together? That's what gluten's job is. It's a sticky substance that is part of wheat, also rye and barley. But the stickiness, when it goes into my gut, it interferes with the breakdown of nutrients that lead to really an assault on the intestinal lining. And then an alarm, of course, goes off telling the immune system, hey, you better start to send out some inflammation to protect my body overall, inside and outside my gut. So what happens over time is if you keep doing this, of course you can get away with it once or twice or occasionally. If you keep doing it, you may develop more and more food sensitivities. And that's really a problem, because that's when you have the wrong kind of microbes getting past the junctions. When you have the junctions are opening up, and then you'll get more and more food sensitivities, hard to even discern which things you're actually sensitive to. I've seen this in my own situation when I know people who have dementia and they have so many food sensitivities, you really can't even figure it out. This is true for everybody, not just people who are celiac or have a diagnosed gluten sensitivity. Gliadin is the protein in the gluten. It's called gliadin. It's a water-soluble protein, and all human guts are sensitive to this gliadin protein, and it increases the gut permeability in everybody. If you want to read more on this, one of my favorite books on the topic is called Brain Maker by David Perlmutter. And he uses a lot of examples from the work of Dr. Alessio Fasano from Harvard. And he talks a lot about the gluten. Okay, here we go. Another fun slide. The gut inflammation leads to brain inflammation. So leaky gut, just think about the junctions and the tic-tac-toe board you just made, or the picket fence. Toxins, unbalanced gut flora. Again, the wrong kind, the wrong ratio of certain kinds to others. I won't go into the names of those.